Hey everyone. Gentleman Game Master here. What I wanted to do with this quick recording is to talk a little bit about uh, Theros Episode 1, Season 2. Bronze Bullies Space Odyssey is what we're calling it. And the reason we're calling it that is because one of the things I really liked about Theros is that kind of ancient Greek mythology, Greek tragedy approach that, based on the Magic the Gathering setting. But what I liked about the setting is that the people of the land stare at the sky, and through the stars, kind of like the constellations, is how they, but almost in a direct, realistic place, they can see the realm of the gods. They can see it every night. And they can see the gods moving around. And the Nyx, for me, was a perfect connection to wild space and to the astral beyond. And all Theros needed was some helms and flying, Greek style ancient ships, and we could be off to the races. Also, the actions of this particular group, the Bronze Bullies, have kind of been taking them in this direction. And so, what had recently happened when we started our first game of 2023, as you can see here, I'm trying to use Streamlabs and OBS a little bit more and learn this stuff. And as I try to do it, the reason I'm doing it is not to become some kind of professional streamer, but to provide a better quality looking game for my virtual players, to up the quality of the tabletop as they see it from their standpoint. And of course, as I venture towards this, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. And one of the mistakes I made last week is that I didn't record any audio. I didn't have the desktop audio being piped through so you could hear me, but you could not hear any of my players. And so, a lot of times for those people who usually watch this episode, you're going to be starting at episode 2 and being like, what happened? Or for those my players that want to go back to an episode and recap and get a quick recap, this is just me recapping episode 1. And so episode 1 begins where it left off, where this god known as the Eye of Doom is being called the original god, the god before the pantheon of others stepped on the scene. This god was not followed by many or worshipped by many in Theros, but was feared by many. And fear is where that god drew its power. And it was also respected by the tyrannical nature of the beings that existed and enslaved most of the mortals in Theros at one time, known as the Archons, almost like these angelic type beings. And they somehow, that God is back, but that God does not have a personality. It has many names because it hasn't really taken on one. People call it different things. And essentially, it's a black hole. And this void, this Eye of Doom, slowly, now that it's awake, and its hunger wants to consume all of Theros. Now, of course, that's a very slow process of slowly drawing everything in its galaxy, everything in its orbit to it slowly and eating it. But one of the planets that is closest to that being done is Akros. And Akros is kind of our, for the vanilla Spartan, based territory. But that part of the land, which is now a planet, because all of Theros, I failed to mention that through the awakening of the Eye, it broke apart all of Theros and all the lands beyond that no one had ever explored, and turned them essentially into either planets or planetoid islands, floating in the Nyx, floating in the astral, floating in the wild space. And Krufix, the god of secrets, gave the Bronze Bullies their first spelljammer, essentially. And the ship has taken on this hammerhead look because Persis, Colin's playing that she's a Triton sorcerer who, as she is attuned to the ship, has changed the way the ship looks, and the way it acts and the way it feels. And so it has become a hammerhead. The party is traveling right now to Akros. And a lot of Akros is really home territory for one of our characters, for Nick's character, Proxinos, who's a human druid who has a lot of backstory there, is Akroin born and raised. But Akros also is kind of home base for the Bronze Bullies. A lot of the Bronze Bullies have paid owed a lot, their allegiance to the god Perforos, who is now dead. And so they're going back to their old stomping grounds, their hideout, to see if anything is still there, to save loved ones, to get people, because the mountain, the volcano Velus has erupted there when the world broke apart, and specifically when Perforos, the god of the forge, went to strike down Heliod. There's a lot going on here because our party actually finished the job for Perforos. They killed Heliod. They killed the sun god, and so now the sun refuses to rise. And everywhere that they have traveled so far, when they go into a planet's atmosphere, it's always dawn and dusk and night. So, and particularly, I think I said 6 hours of dawn, 6 hours of dusk, and then 12 hours of night is how it works right now. And so there on Akros, the party fly into the city of Akros over it and try to start helping people, right? Just start trying to do damage control. One of the major situations that they see happening first is that Tyrannica, the leader of the city, is trying to get all of her men across this gap in one of the structures, as one of the main structures of the city is collapsing. And so there's a cutoff there, and there's the Colossus, the Acroian Colossus, that has done its best to bend, as you see here, bend down and create an opening there so they can get across. And so the party's going to help. They've also met a little stowaway on their ship named Moby, who Eddie's playing now, who's a Hadozi. So it's the first time anyone's ever met a Hadozi. And they just go into action, right? As you see, some people couldn't make it to this game, but we're excited to get the party fully back. But as they're having this fight, a comet streaks out of the sky, because every now and then there are blasts coming out of the volcano. There's soot and sulfur in the air. It's hard to breathe. Ash is raining down everywhere. This kind of comet rains out of the sky and crashes, and when it does, it destroys the Colossus, or what looks like it does, and leaves this gap in the ground. And then it breathes. This huge dragon unfurls its wing, and we all know that this is Thraxes. Now, if you go back to season 1, they fought Thraxes, but this is ancient dragon Thraxes. How he's gotten so big, so badass, so fast, we don't know. But he's back. He's angry. He's here for blood. He breathes lava, just a combination of magma onto the walkway, onto the ship. The ship takes a bunch of damage. The party takes 90 something points of damage. People start dropping, and then a white albino dragon known as Time Drinker shows up. Time Drinker is an oracle dragon. In Theros, there are only known to be 2 colors of dragons. There aren't this full gamut of chromatic. There is red and blue. And so this albino dragon is really not albino. What it is he's caked in ash. He's covered in the ash from when Velus first erupted. He's almost like, Kratos. And he's an oracle. So he can foresee something is wrong about Thraxes assuming so much power so quickly. And what we come to learn is that Thraxes, essentially, as gods are dropping like flies right now in Theros, Thraxes is trying to stake claim to being a part of that pantheon, of whatever that new pantheon that gets built. And the party are in a situation of fighting him, and it's not looking good. But our Time Drinker shows up. Right before this happens, we have Proxenos, who is from this land, from this city, from this polis, the human druid. In his own way, jumps out there and does something that is reckless and probably will not work. Trying to cast contagion on this dragon, it will not work. But I commend that kind of thinking, because he's not metagaming from the standpoint of, every player in a combat knows what their player's capable of. You know that a dragon like this has a number of legendary actions, and so this gave him the opportunity he didn't want to see his homeland burn, so he did something reckless. This is not something that's new for Nick's characters, but it always makes for interesting storytelling when he does do it, and that's why he does do it. He leaped at this dragon, and he would have died had Time Drinker not shown up, and this caused this battle of dragons in the sky. Nick's character's riding on one of them, and Proxenos actually falls, but falls along with Time Trigger when he is cast down by Thraxes and they survive. Now, that wasn't something that was in the cards or planned. Time Trigger was planned to show up, but now this made for an interesting spectacle that Time Trigger was able to see that this young boy would throw away his life to face evil. And so while Time Trigger is a dragon, he doesn't love mortals. He's not in this to save them. He was in it to stop Thraxes. I think this might make him a better ally, and he might be willing to stick around and share more information that will be helpful to the Bronze Bullies going forward. I know this isn't the most robust or coherent version of everything that happened in this episode, but it's just the major points, and I wanted to put it down so that it was there in place of an actual episode 1. So, I apologize for my ramblings. I am not one to make full-on scripts since I spend so much time doing those and doing talking points for my games. I just like to get on here and ramble and talk, and I'm sure I, missed a lot that I probably would have wanted to say. And again, I just want to make this more professional as we go forward so that it's easier to go back and watch. It's more pleasurable to, listen to, whether you all are watching my players or you're my players watching yourselves to kind of get a recap before a game. And as we do this, hopefully one day we'll start streaming live, not to, like I say, and not with the goal of being professional streamers or to have these like really tight streams, but to provide it there to stream on the night we play the game. And that said, like you see here, sometimes players won't be here, and sometimes players won't get here late, because I don't expect my players are players. They're here to have fun. They're here to enjoy the game, and that's all that's required of them. They show up, they shoot the shit, we talk, beer and pretzels, and then we when we start gaming, we're in it, we're serious, right? It's my job to do all that serious prep, and so this is just a facet or a way to share it with those who find something valuable in watching myself and my players go through this exercise that is, and this joyful kind of art and community and hobby that is tabletop gaming, whether it is Dungeons and Dragons or other games or offshoots, which there will be more coming, more Tales from the Loop, more Alien, definitely more games this year that I want to explore. Blade Runner, Dragon's Bane, Forbidden Lands, Simbaroom, I believe that's how you pronounce that, and so forth. So I'm rambling now. Thanks for watching, and let's get on to episode 2.